Him on here with me. So, everyone, my name is Dr. Curt Fisnick. If you just joined us, we're going to be talking about the age pill tonight. I've got my special guest, Tom Jr., and he is going to be with us here in 2 seconds. There he is. And so, Tom Jr., welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here on a Friday evening here, and throughout the world it's a different time. I know that, and so thanks for the invite, Doc, to be on here today. And I just left a conference room full of new people who are excited to be part of Sisel, and kind of a young and hip hop type group that's big into e-commerce and all of the social influencing, and so yeah, it's kind of fun to hear all their exciting ideas and different parts of the world that they come from here in America and other parts. And so anyway, but when Doc sent me a text, said, "Hey, do you want to jump on?" And I said, "Absolutely."
You bet.
It's fun to talk about exciting products and what we're doing. And when I first jumped on, I hear you talking about some of the struggles that we're having with freight in Australia. And so one thing I probably just touch on that for just a second. We are not satisfied with it either. And we work on it constantly. In fact, Doc, you had sent me a text yesterday, and at 11 o'clock last night, I had sent it to Thomas to find me more details out about it. And then he called me at home that night. And so we're working on these things, and it is definitely getting better in some areas as these HS codes are getting fixed by UPS, and they've changed the logistics centers. It's getting better there, but that doesn't mean we have to stay with UPS either. We're also looking at other options too. And so we have some very exciting things outside of shipping that we're going to be talking about here in the next week or two also. But tonight, talking to Doc, what do we want to talk about? And he wants to talk about one of the most revolutionary products that we brought out in the last 2 or 3 years, and something that affects every single one of us every single day of our lives. And one of the most important biological processes that we have in our body is cell duplication. And cell duplication is the process of birth and dying on a cellular level. And it starts with a root cell called a stem cell. A stem cell is the very beginning of a new cell being born and developed and living out, hopefully, a healthy life cycle. But as scientists have found, there's many things that affect this. And there's so many different products that we have that help to reduce inflammation, that causes cellular damage, remove free radical damage, through SpectraMax, through good nutrition that helps the cell stay healthy longer. But we need to talk about the very building block, that the very cell that begins this new skin cell, muscle cell, bone cell, and those are stem cells. And so when we talk about age pill, we talk about stemolytic, we're talking about the very birth of every new cell we have in our body. We have 30 to 40 trillion different cells in our body. We are a remarkable organism. And from a stem cell, they become differentiated. And at that point, they receive their identity that they're going to be in the eye, they're going to be in the bone, they're going to be in the skin, and then stem cells are throughout our body, and they receive this differentiation to become that. But what happens to a stem cell? What happens to the cells in our body? Just like if we look at our bodies as a machine, if we were a car, we had a motor. What happens if we don't change our oil? What happens if we don't watch for oxidation and rust? Things become thick, they become oxidized, they're not as efficient, they burn more fuel, they don't give as much power, they don't have the longevity. The same is true with our cells in our body, because each one of those is a basically a little teeny factory. You're made up of 30 or 40 different trillion factories, your body, and they need to be clean. They need to be efficient. They need to produce energy because they're producing the proteins that make up your keratin in your hair and your fingernails and all the different components of your body. They're taking all these good nutrients that you're ingesting and saying, we need to add more material to an ear, an eye, a bone, a muscle. We need to produce hormones. And so when that cell is not functioning 100%, well, a couple of things happen. We become more aged and the quality of our life goes down because the quality of our health. So when we designed the age pill, which is revolutionary, I get requests every single month from people around the world. We want the exclusives for this market. We want to take it to this market. We'll buy it by the pallet full. And I've rejected those in large part because this is for Sisel distributors to sell that. And so when we ingest the nutrients that are found in the age pill, it's really like giving ourselves a spring cleaning. You think about when you go through the house and you dust everything, you wax, you polish, it is clean, you've opened the windows, the air's flowing through. Boy, the house is wonderful. When you take the age pill, it removes the glycation. And that's really a process of taking sugars in the cell, consuming those, and then the plaque buildup binds with proteins. And pretty soon, rather than walking through air, it's like walking through pudding or mud or sand. It gets very difficult to move within that cell. And when that happens, proteins aren't duplicated as quick. But one of the most important factors is energy is lost because every single cell produces your currency for your body. This is a ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is the most important molecule because it gives you your energy to move and to think and to run a long distance. And so it's the ability to produce ATP fast and regenerate it quickly that gives us the amount of energy that we have. And so as this glycation accumulates within a cell, it becomes a slower process. And we have things that we can add to that. We have, our hydrogen water that we can drink, and we can give fast hydrogen because the ATP needs hydrogen to regenerate, but making sure the cell can efficiently produce ATP because ATP is reduced to ADP, which is reduced to AMP because you have 3 phosphate molecules that are attached to that. And every time one breaks off, it goes to ADP, AMP, and then we have to rebuild it to ATP to start that dephosphorylation process again, because every time one breaks off, energy is released and we consume that as we're running, we're exercising, we're moving. And so with that in mind, Tom Sr., my father, and myself were looking at new science that showed that it is possible to house clean a cell and to make it efficient and to bring that efficiency up and to where we were when we were younger, because it happens over age. And also it happens in our stem cells. And if they can't duplicate as fast and replace cells as fast, then all of a sudden the condition of our body starts to wane and go down. So we have many different products that affect aging, but when we get right to the root, the stem cell itself that's duplication, there is no better product than the age pill and Stemolytic in making sure that continual process. Like I say, you're made up of 30 to 40 trillion cells, and the faster you can duplicate and the more efficiently you can duplicate, the more energy that you'll have and the more useful you will be. And so This is a dynamic product for that process. It's a Sisel exclusive product that we have, and we're seeing the results throughout the world. People are buying this product, and not only buying it, they're consuming it, and not just out of habit, because they see the change in their life. They feel younger. They have more energy. They're feeling like they did many years ago. So, Doc, this is a very important product, a base product. There's so many things that we can take to enhance that effect. We can, by taking Spectromax, we're stopping the assault on cells. By taking TSX, we're protecting the telomeres within the cells that are duplicating the DNA. That is our code for our phenotype, our health, everything we do. That is the map that every cell uses to duplicate. And so TSX is instrumental in making sure that that strand of DNA is in a pristine environment. Because one thing we know is people die of natural causes, the base pairs of DNA become shorter, and they all have about the same level when we die from natural causes. And TSX helps to rebuild that, so we don't get down to those few base pairs, because it increases and supports the production of telomerase, the enzyme that will help rebuild and repair those telomeres, because they become shorter every time they duplicate and a new cell is produced. So we have the premier cellular, right down to the stem cell itself, products to protect, to help it duplicate, help it produce maximum energy. And those key products that we have at Sisel are designed to do exactly that. Doc?
Well, hey, Tom, I don't know if you were aware, I just want to kind of throw a couple things at you that, did you know that the United States Department of Defense right now is doing a study with NAD supplements? They actually have the military taken, or they're going to have the military taken to enhance our military.
It would not surprise me. I know NSA's looked at a lot of these types of products also, and there's been a lot of science investigating. I remember back when I was going in college and one thing we said, boy, what if you could just take a product like that? And they said, it'll never happen. The government's looked at it. We understand the benefit of it. It's essential to life. It's essential to energy, but nobody's ever been able to figure it out. So I hadn't heard that recent news, but it does not surprise me one bit, because the interest has been there for decades. The know-how has not been really available until just the last couple of years.
That's right. Yeah, because the age pill came out almost 4 years exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that was
July 2017.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So another thing that I was just going to say that, I do a lot of reading as well, and I spend a lot of time. I mean, every day I'm doing reading, things like that. But one of the things that I found out a long time ago was that, we talk about resveratrol and how resveratrol supports the sirtuin genes, but the sirtuin genes need this energy that they get from the ingredients that we have in the H pill in order for them to work.
Every cell produces ATP, and that is like a light switch. It is the electricity that flows through your entire body. And so you need to have that mitochondria producing that ATP in every single cell to have the energy that's possible. And like I say, you have to regenerate it, because that AMP molecule goes up to ADP, goes up to ATP, and then we rip off that phosphate group, and every time it comes off, it releases that energy, so it's continual. So when we have all this glycation because of sugars, and I'm going to talk just 1 second, think about Sisel Thin ketones. That is very clean energy, right? That's like jet fuel versus sugar when we're eating heavy carbs and everything. And people notice that when they eat a lot of starches and a lot of sugars and a lot of carbs, they feel sluggish. When they're in ketosis or they're taking Sisel Thin, they don't feel bloated, they don't feel sluggish, because that sugar has to be taken into the cell. But what happens, it has a byproduct. It's kind of like cleaning the chimney, you get all the soot buildup and everything. That happens in your cell when you're burning all this glucose and all this sugar. And so you're exactly right. We need to get rid of that glycation. And by having elevated NAD levels, that helps to do that. And then by doing such, we produces biological hydrogen that's essential in making that ATP molecule available again to produce an energy source for our body.
You bet. Well, and comparing it, and I'm not, without mentioning any other names of any other products or things like that, but comparing it to other products, I always tell people, look, all the other products that are out there that I've looked at, they use one pathway. They're following one pathway. But with the age pill, I think your dad said we're actually going down 5 different pathways to increase that ATP, to increase that hydrogen production. So
we are, and we're not just looking at it in just age pill, and everything to block this lipofuscin, to remove this lipofuscin, to increase biological hydrogen, to increase ATP. But we're looking, if you look at it as a system for anti-aging, I mean, the H pill is not found in fucoidan. But why is fucoidan consumed by people who live the longest? And that's happened for thousands of years, because it blocks inflammation. It's adaptogenic. It affects cholesterol levels. All the things that are indicative of an aging person and things that increase, and not in a positive fashion, it helps to mitigate that. Why is Spectromax so big? Because it helps us neutralize free radicals, those things that are rusting away our body, and the byproducts that we have that are produced within our body. Each cell is producing waste that we have to get rid of. And the H pill is designed to remove those toxic waste from a cell, to get them out of there. Not only remove these fused proteins with sugars, but also remove the other byproducts of doing. That's one of the things about when you burn energy, you always have byproducts. We need to get it out of there. And so with TSX to help protect the DNA, with H pill to help to clean that cell and produce clean energy, and Stemolytic to go through and say, hey, these stem cells aren't at their peak performance. Let's get them out of there. Yep, throw them out. Let's get a new one in there that'll do its job, that's 100% efficient. All of these different components. And you talked about resveratrol. Not only do we have the most biologically active, 300% more active than a solid dose form of resveratrol, it's proven. Harvard Medical has shown what we can do there by activating that sirtuin gene that shuts off. It's going to get about 30. And then what happens? Our youthful hormones go down. Well, we need those. I mean, people talk about hormone supplementation all the time. I have people I know that do testosterone shots, and we have a lazy pituitary, and so our HGH levels go down, and all these things. Let's turn on that sirtuin gene. Let's not let it happen. We can do that through natural foods like resveratrol that's found in the muscadine grape and Japanese knotweed, and we have it in a simple to use, delicious tasting supplement, resveratrol. Just drink an ounce of that every day and you're getting what you need. I mean, some of the least healthy diets in the world, through Germany and France and everything, they live longer too. Why do they do it? They drink a lot of red wine. And so there's some things in red wine maybe not so good, but there's some things in red wine that definitely have the benefit, and that's the resveratrol. And so you have to look at an anti-aging system to be complete. DNA, stem cells, healthy, clean cells, protect the cells, activate the genes that give you youth again. And that's when Dad and I look at these things. We don't look at one component. We're not looking for just a vitamin E and what are the benefits. What are all the external and internal and biological processes that are affected when it comes to aging? And that's how we've developed this system as a whole.
Perfect. So we'll close it with this, Tom. I just, a lot of people, they'll take the product, and they go, well, I didn't take the full dose. I only took one per day or something like that. And I just tell those people, well, you're not taking enough to really do it. But for the people that take the full dose, sometimes people come back to me and they've been on it for 2, 3, 4 weeks, maybe even longer than that. And they say, well, I just don't feel any difference. It's not working for me. And, you know, I know what my answer is to them. But what's your answer to somebody and people that are listening, we haven't spoken on what I'm going to ask Tom or anything like that. So I don't know what your answer is going to be, but what would be your answer to somebody if they say, hey, I've been taking it for 6 weeks and I don't feel any different?
Well, hopefully they don't feel a difference because their body's at 100% performance. Because that's a rarity, but I guess that could happen. You get that
3% of the world, right?
Exactly. But reality is biological processes. I mean, it took me 58 years to get where I am right now. It didn't happen overnight. But if we look at like TSX, which you can scientifically prove to yourself, if you want to have one of these labs draw your blood and measure your base pairs and give you a biological and a chronological age, it won't happen in 3 or 4 weeks. You will start to see a difference in 6 to 12 months. And that is the truth. And so I look at some of those factors because it takes time to rebuild it. We didn't just go to bed one night at 18 and wake up 75. It takes a long time. It takes time. But the nice thing about it, once we start on the path of repair, or we start on the path of prevention. When we talk about prevention, it's kind of like, it's like the other day, I do a lot of testing and it's not just testing for FDA and Department of Ag and things. I have to test for Sisel safe. And so, I have ingredients over there that, they pass FDA and everything else, GMP, they don't pass. And I have tonnages of that over there right now that we're fighting with vendors that don't meet our criteria. But my point being is I was telling everybody, like, oh, this is so hard and to be Sisel safe. And you're concerned about residues of heavy metals and all these different things that nobody else really tests for. And I said, yeah, but look at it this way. What would happen if it got in the market? I'd feel horrible about it. Other people may not notice the difference. And that's really where protection comes from. So when people take Spectramax, a lot of times they're like, I really don't know if I can tell a difference. You're exactly right, because you're being protected. You're not going to get an immediate, wow, boy, do I feel different. You're not going to get like caffeine or something like that you feel it in 15, 20 minutes. You're going to be protected from that. When your sirtuin gene turns on, that once again, too, as those hormone levels and everything, those youthful hormone levels start to reoccur, even in the mouse studies and everything they had, it took a long time, but they would see these aged mice become youthful again, and they could run on a treadmill longer and do things. And so it takes a while. And with inflammation, when you're blocking inflammation, what do people say? Yeah, it feels like it should. That's right. But guess what? If it was red and hot and 3 times bigger, you'd notice the difference. And so when your knees and everything, and when people at Sizzle Rip, the science shows, University of Arkansas, that you do build muscle. When they do knee and hip replacements, what do they see? Compared to those who don't take that amino acid blend, it takes them 20 to 30% longer to heal. But when somebody heals from a knee replacement, they say, well, yeah, it's kind of what I expected. Well, if they look at those who were measured who didn't take that, it takes them 30% longer to heal. And so we expect to feel great. And so many people who say, well, I didn't notice anything in 3 or 4 weeks. Well, you were protected against things. And if you're feeling good, I'll tell you what, that's exactly the sign that we're looking for.
You bet. Well, I'm going to simplify what you just said, right? Because I
Please
feel
do.
like that. I'm going to simplify. I'm going to say, hey, Tom, do you change the oil in your truck?
Absolutely.
Does your truck run any better when you change the oil?
No, but I feel better about
But
it.
yeah, because your dad would have kicked your butt if you wouldn't have. But
Right, exactly.
but the whole thing is that that's what we're doing. We're removing that sludge. We're removing that old oil, and your truck doesn't run any better. So why would you expect your body to run better when you remove the sludge out? It is, but you don't necessarily notice it, just like you don't notice that your truck's running better.
That's right. And how many times do you have somebody, I mean, it doesn't happen a lot, but I have a few friends that say, I've got 350,000 miles on this motor. I've got 450,000 miles. I'm like, wow. Most people get 120, 150,000 miles and their car's hammered. And the one thing that they always say is, I change my oil regularly, because when you've got grit and grime and you can't handle the temperature swings and everything for lubrication, it's wearing. It might be 40 years until they get to that 350,000 mile mark, but it's still running strong. You're exactly right. Same with our body. Let's keep it clean. Let's keep it protected. Let's keep it healthy, and it will service us for many more decades than the average population.
You bet. All right. Well, Tom, thanks for being with us tonight. Thanks for
Yeah.
sharing your knowledge, and really, we sure appreciate everything that you guys do over at corporate as far as like trying to fix the little problems that pop up here and there, but keep your focus on the product development, because the last thing we want to do is get sick or get old.
Well, we've got some great things coming up here.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks,
Thanks
Doc.
everyone for being here. Have a good night.